Okay, this week's Parshat is Parshat Vayechi, and there is a very striking symmetry. The Parsha opens up in a very, very similar way to the way the Parsha closes. The Parsha opens up with Yaakov calling his son Yosef in, and Yaakov understands he's about to die. He's going to be giving a whole litany of brachos to both his grandsons and his sons. But before that, he understands he's going to die, and he makes his son Yosef take a shvuah. He shavali. He makes him take a shvuah, al not tik bereini b'Mitzrayim. He demands a shvuah that he should not find his permanent resting place in Mitzrayim. He wants to be buried v'shachavti im avosai. He wants to be buried back with the avos and the sasani b'Mitzrayim ukvar tani b'kvurasam. And Yosef responds, Anochi esek kidvarecha. Promises, makes the shvuah that he's not going to bury Yaakov in Mitzrayim, only in Eretz Yisrael. The parsha ends in a very, very strikingly similar fashion, with Yosef being on his deathbed, and he brings his sons in, and he says, "Vayash ba Yosef b'nei Yisrael." He brings his sons, and he also brings the b'nei Yaakov in. Pakod yivkod Elokim eschem va'alisem es atzmosai mizeh. He also is mashbiah his sons that he doesn't want to be buried here in Mitzrayim. He wants also to be taken back into Eretz Yisrael. So it's very striking that these two personalities, Yaakov and Yosef, the parsha ends with Yosef demanding, making a shvuah that he not be buried in Mitzrayim, rather in Eretz Yisrael, and so too, the Yaakov makes the same exact request of his son. In fact, if you look at the Rambam in Hilchos Malachim, the Rambam tells us that the importance, the crucial importance is found in Perkei Hilchos Malachim of living in Eretz Yisrael. And he says a person who even lives and walks arba amos zocha l'chai olam haba. And then he tells us v'chein hakaver bo niskaper lo. Even a person who's buried is going to have a kapara by being buried in Eretz Yisrael. Uki'ilu hamakom shubo mizbeach kapara. The place itself is like the Adama, is like a mizbeach, and it represents a kapara, like he's a karban buried in that place in Eretz Yisrael. But then he adds, Ve'eno doma kol taso mechaim lekol taso achramoso. And even though it's great, it's very, very important to be buried in Eretz Yisrael, tremendous skulos and kaparos that ensue, but living in Eretz Yisrael is even on a greater level. Ve'afal pichem, and even though living is on a greater level than, if you will, being buried, dying, afal pichem, there's an inyan gdolei hachacham hayu molichem meseim l'sham, that great Gedolim used to travel and bring their dead bodies to Eretz Yisrael, and the Rambam concludes, Tzei ulamad mi Yaakov Avinu v'Yosef HaTzadik. And this we see already from Yaakov and Yosef. So what exactly is special over here? What is it only because of Kaparas Avonos that Yosef HaTzadik mandates, requests that he be buried in Eretz Yisrael? So to Yaakov, is there a deeper idea here as well? So first of all, it's interesting to note that Yaakov, when it comes to Yaakov's burial, Yaakov is taken, he says, I want to be buried with the Avos, and right after he dies, there's a period of short Avelos in Mitzrayim, and then he's immediately taken back to Maras Machpelah and buried in Hebron with the rest of the Avos. When it comes to Yosef, on the other hand, Yosef is also going to be buried in Eretz Yisrael in Shechem, not with the Avos, and his bones will endure the years of Shibud Mitzrayim, the period of 40 years in Midbar, until they finally reach their resting place. The reason for this, perhaps, is that Yaakov is Begeder HaAvos. He's one of the Avos, and therefore, if you will, his story is a story of Sefer Bereshis. He's going to be brought back immediately with the Avos and is buried in Maras Machpelah. Yosef is Begeder HaBonim, is one of the sons, one of the 12 tribes, and as a result, just like the Bnei Yisrael are going to have to endure the Shibud Mitzrayim and the process of Golus and Geula in order to get into Eretz Yisrael, so Yosef and his bones are going to have to endure that as well. But it's very, very striking that both, even though Yosef is Begeder HaBonim and Yaakov is Begeder HaAvos, both have the same exact request. They understand that the destiny of Klal Yisrael is not in Mitzrayim, the destiny of Klal Yisrael is not in Golus, the ultimate destiny of Klal Yisrael is in Eretz Yisrael. That's exactly what the Rambam is expressing as well, is that ideally we live in Eretz Yisrael. Push comes to shove, we have our issues, we can't do it. So the concept of establishing where is our permanence, where a person is buried, really establishes in a real way his permanent home, if you will. And Yaakov understood he did not want the Bnei Yaakov and his offspring and the generations thereafter to visit his kever in Mitzrayim. And Yosef as well, they understood that the ultimate destiny of Klal Yisrael is in Eretz Yisrael. That's why it was so crucial that they be buried, that their ultimate resting place, their ultimate home, be in Eretz Yisrael as well. Not just for the Kaparas Avonos, Yosef HaTzadik, what did he need Kaparas Avonos for? But to establish for future generations that this is really the Malkum of Klal Yisrael. And it's interesting to note that when it comes to Yaakov, right away, he dies, and immediately thereafter, a short period of Avelus, he's buried back in Eretz Yisrael. Yosef has to go through a process of some 250 years, 300 years before he ultimately reaches his resting place. You see, our destiny is the same. The destiny of every member of Klal Yisrael is the same. Our destiny is in Eretz Yisrael. That's for sure. There's no doubt about it. One just has to read the Chumash, read the Tanakh, and understand, read Chazal, read the Rambam, and understand the destiny of the Jewish people is here in Eretz Yisrael. But some will take different routes. Some will be like Yaakov, will come straight away. We'll have the schus of Klitas Chaim, Klitas Meis. We'll have the schus of Eretz Yisrael immediately, on an immediate basis. Some will have to take a more circuitous route, the route of Yosef HaTzadik, who had to endure the period of Galus, the period of Shibud, followed by the 40 years in Midbar. Finally, he has his emergence, his resting place in Eretz Yisrael. But the lesson, I believe, of the burial of both Yaakov and Yosef is to teach Klal Yisrael that although we might take different routes, although it will happen in a different way for different people, but ultimately our destiny, the destiny of our people, the destiny of Klal Yisrael is tied to Eretz Yisrael, is in Eretz Yisrael. So whether it's going to be us, our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, but ultimately, Be'ez Hashem, sooner rather than later, we'll all be Zoche to live in Eretz Yisrael, to have Eretz Yisrael in its full glory with the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu, B'mehera v'yameinu.